And welcome. This is Nature Echoes on this lovely May day. Has been lovely anyway. It's the Sunday, 7th of May. It's the day after the Festival of Fires at Ushnik. If anybody was there that's watching in, please say how you got on there. We were in Ballycastle. Claire had a concert there and a lovely church concert. It was a sold-out concert. Great atmosphere, and she was absolutely magnificent. And it was a beautiful afternoon and evening coming away from there. So I gather that probably the Yushnik had similar weather at that time, and so I hope so. And of course, on Friday, that was the crossing the cross quarter, the Bildner cross quarter, and was also a lunar eclipse, but that was only seen in the Middle East. I say only a big chunk of the Earth, but the Middle East and the Orient got to see the visions of that. But pretty good, interesting astrologically, being the fact that the eclipse there, that the it was the moon actually being 10 degrees Scorpio, I believe, and opposing the sun there. Fascinating, because the sun would have been the exact midpoint of Taurus. Anyway, I'll get on because I'm supposed to be just here half an hour. I was just waiting until a couple of people come on board, and I see people are actually watching now. So thank you for joining me. And this is our weekly time of echoing news, stories, poetry, and art that is connected to nature folklore and our precious water, holy wells, woodlands, hedges, and wildlife. So hail, whole, and holy good health for you all that are watching and sharing this, whatever you do with this Nature Echoes show. Now, through this edition, I had to quickly put this together, and I'm really focusing. I usually try and do 3 echoes, but I'm going to focus on 1 echo because of something wonderful that I read this week. And this 1 echo is inspired by an article by a lovely writer, Ali Isaac, and she posted it on her HAG blog, I suppose you might call it. It's on Substack, and this is something that she had this week. And I'm going to include the latest with Journaling Nature Folklore, of course. And excuse me, got the frog early in the program today. Sorry about that. I haven't got any photos today. I did quickly put this together, and I hope you do enjoy it. You've got the photo here of the dark hedges where we were at yesterday, and I hope that will satisfy the photos for us through this session. Anyway, better get going. Nature's Echo is and the Growing Nature Folklore videos, articles, photo library, and the Journaling Nature Folklore course modules. They're all supported, and they're not supported by my computers that is losing you and breaking down, but it's all brought to you due to the support of our kind subscribers. So I invite you to subscribe to Nature Folklore through Substack. That's the address there. And that's the link. And through that, I host a free subscription tier, and free subscribers get access to at least 40 Nature Folklore articles that I write per year and post on Substack. And also, most days, I try to do it every day, but it's been impossible. But a lot of the days, maybe 5 a week, I post on Notes. That's also on Substack, and little short story pieces I put there. So, but if you upgrade to become a support subscriber, you're then invited to take part in my Journaling Nature Folklore course, because your subscription cost covers this. And Journaling Nature Folklore, that includes 20 course modules through the year, but you can join in at any time, because Journaling Nature Folklore, it's a revolving course. It's not a linear one. So it means you can join in and start at any time, and then you get the latest updates and add on when we've gone around the solar year and we're going through it all again. I'll always have something new to add to that. And you can also join in any of the 4 seasonal online live workshops a year. And some people have been asking, well, can we all get together live? And so I'm thinking about that locally, because we've got a lovely country house hotel nearby. So that's in the wind as well at the moment. Now, the cost is €5 a month, or you can go for 50% discount. That's €30 a year, or equivalent in your own currency. So thank you, support subscribers. Your support is why I'm still here broadcasting. Anyway, with all that survival pledge drive sorted, there's people come on board. It's lovely to see you. Hi, everybody. But nobody's actually made a comment of who they are and where they're located yet. So I assume you'll present that a little bit shortly. Now, let's get started on that. No comments yet. Anyway, more and more on Nature Echoes. I seem to be featuring favorite articles I read on Substack. That's in addition to the news articles that I catch up on and I like to echo, that I feel has a lovely presence related to nature folklore within day-to-day living projects. Now, Ali Isaac is one of my favorite writers on Substack, and she was once very popular. Well, that popularity is coming back again because people are rediscovering her. But she had a great following to a mythologies and folklore blog on WordPress. But like with most of us, there were other important, passionate things that took over in her life, and the blog sort of faded away a little bit. But now Ali is back, and she's on Substack. And her blog title on Substack, if you do, which is a lovely site for writers, as I say, that's why I'm inviting you there. The reason I like it is there's no algorithms following you around and no adverts. So it's a lovely old-fashioned online social place. But anyway, Ali Isaac, she's on her blog post. I don't know what to call it, for writing space. It's called HAG, H-A-G, all in capital letters. And with that, she covers kayak, goddess, and feminine matters, all that's within folklore and mythology. She's got quite a mission with it. She's very focused. It's quite incredible because it's not a feminist blog. She writes in a very tasteful way. She writes for everyone, and it's good for anyone to read and be full of wonder. So as I say, not feminist blog, but wonderfully balanced and well-researched, as Ali only knows, and extremely informative. And lately, Ali has been adding more of her own and very creative thoughts along what she discovers in her research. And Ali's writings on Substack, as I say, HAG, and what they do is explore the kayak, some people say, the folklore and mythology of the HAG and the kayak in relation to the lives of maturing women, not maturing women at that. And especially their return to focus on self-discovery. They've been mothers, a lot of them, and the children have left the nest, they're established. And so it's very much dedicated to women who are reinventing their identity even and bringing back stuff that they used to do. And one of Ali's quotes that I love is, "We are more than the sum of our reproductive parts." That's what that's about. For women who are discovering what they are on the sum of their reproductive parts. So Ali's most recent article, I think it's one of her best. And I may say that about the next article. I tend to do that. But to me at the moment, this is her best article, but saying best article could be a bit of a habit for me. Her article starts off with her interpretation of who is the sovereignty goddess. And Ali starts this off by reminding us that a goddess, no matter how you vision or interpret what a goddess is, it may be just a name, or you may think about what she represents, our land, maybe. And to me, when I think of a kayak or goddess or hag, she's everything below the surface, and also the seas and the waterways as well. But on the land, she's where the seeds, it's in the dark land, which is where the seeds germinate. And they grow towards the light. And it's because of that we have a harvest and we can live. And of course, the same with the water. We need that, what grows from the land along with the water. Now, a king, as she writes up, was representative of someone chosen or inherited to unite with the goddess, unite with the kayak. That was the ancient purpose of the king, as it seems to be written down. So maybe the king's a representative of the sun as well. And if I get onto a second echo, I'll go into that a little bit. But during this recent, what a lot of us might say, Piscean age of just over 2,000 years, And maybe before that, the Aries and Taurus ages, before that, there's always been some reverence for a god in the sky. And folklore it's essential for a king who is representative of the sun or the god in the sky to actually mate with the goddess and get married with the land through her. Now, by doing so, both the king and the land flourishes, and in theory, the people within the realm of the king flourish too. Now, it does seem that if a king does not do this successfully, he ends up going into battle because things are not working out. He forgets his divine purpose. And unfortunately, instead of being married to the land, he ends up raping the land out of ego and greed. I think in modern days, we know some examples of that. But after Ali's introduction, which I've quoted some from her and expanded it somewhat, Ali actually shares versions of quite well-known mythological kings or historical kings of Ireland and their goddess stories as well. And these are stories that I touch on during Nature Folklore sessions and articles. But Ali actually shares through her article much more of the stories than I tend to do in Nature Folklore. One of the stories is of Niall of the Nine Hostages, when he faced a hag at a well, and she wouldn't let him and the people around him draw water without him kissing the kayak or the hag. And then there's Con of the 100 Battles. He actually got trapped in a mist as he was wandering, and by doing so, he entered into the underworld. He meets a beautiful woman, but in this case, it's like a threesome, because with this beautiful woman is the god version of Lua. And Lua actually recites to Con a long list of who's going to be Con's descendants, who's going to be born in the future that's going to become the kings of Erin. And then Ali follows those two quite well-known stories, really, with very unique stories such as goddesses and the human queens. And the human queens have multiple husbands in order to honor the goddess. Maeve's obviously a very well-known one for that. And she also includes a video clip of a man called Magan, and he's reminding us that goddesses were actually the main worship of humans. But for a while now, we've covered that up. That's what Mancon says anyway, and it's true, I believe it. But this reverence is opening up again. I think most of us are becoming aware of that. But the first of this covering up time in Ireland, not only Ireland, but somewhat in the pockets of Scotland, Wales, and England too, was the time of the scribing industry came in. And that commenced about the 5th century. It certainly got some traction during the 7th century and was truly on a roll from the 9th century onwards. So Ali put into a few words what I have previously rambled on for about 20 minutes sometimes. And Ali relates to the scribes as recording the myths as best they could from translating the oral into the limited scribed languages they knew. They knew Latin, probably a bit of Greek. And through knowing Latin and Greek symbols, the letters, they could actually put the first of the Gaelic languages together through this, and that's what they scribed with. So Ali says the myths are more likely to reflect the time the writer was living. In this case, let's think about the 9th century scribes. So the 9th century scribe would relate the myths according to the time that and they were always they were living in, rather than going back and imagining in a time that they were written about. And by doing so, the scribes, the writers, they were given space to explore these themes. But if they went too far on that, they could get into trouble if they expressed this stuff that they believed was being said to them orally, along with their own thoughts. If they got too open with this, then there was some serious trouble. And I do mention that I believe these scribes, they were guided to interpret and retell stories in ways that were favorable to the kings, chieftains, and abbots, especially their legacy and the past and what's going to happen in the future. Otherwise, the scribes would end up losing their food, their shelter, fuel, and other services if they didn't stick to the program, if they didn't stick to what their bosses were asking them to do and the manner they were going to riot. And of course, that's the same today. That'll be upon us. We would lose, if we're in salaried jobs, careers, we would lose our salaried careers if we didn't work around the guidelines that our employers tell us. But Ali does not expand into this. But today, a lot of storytellers and folklorists, they tell their stories according to the time and conditions that we live in now, rather than the time and conditions that were around the people of the time of their stories that they're telling. The way some storytellers assertively tell their tales, I would think, the way they tell them, it's as if there was good internet and social media around 2000 BC, just in the manner that they're telling them. And also the people of those ancient times, they traveled around on turbocharged horses along a network of ye old ancient motorways and freeways. They didn't realize what the land restriction was for mobility then. And then there's the pagan versus Christian story interpretations. And that's one theme that I can find very funny and sometimes quite irritating. But my thought is, please, when you're coming up with a story or an interpretation, and I've done courses and workshops on this, please go back and imagine yourselves actually in those times. And it means you've got to let go of your words, although you're going to use words to translate this, but you can use doodles, even bits of sculpture, whatever you can do. In a way, you can apply a little bit of your modern skills, but try and go back as much as you can to imagine yourselves in those times and what may be around you. And think, imagine in that imagination, consider how people were surviving, how they moved, what they eat, what they did to get what they eat, how they built their homes. And more important, what were they thinking and feeling? What would you be thinking and feeling if you were really present in what you're now imagining about those times? And that's the core foundation basis of my journaling nature folklore course. Anyway, some people have made some comments. It's really people saying hello. Claire's here, delighted to see you, John. She's actually the other end of the cottage here, which is fabulous. And then we got Joseph Giangrosso. Have I got that right? Giangrosso, Joseph, hello from Birmingham, Alabama. Lovely to have you aboard. And anybody who would like to make comments on what I've said so far? Fascinating stuff inspired by Ali Isaac, and quite a lot of it is quoting. For those who may have joined, because I see the numbers are going up, this is quite a stripped down Nature Echoes today. It's one echo. It may go on to two, but I see I've done 18 minutes already, so let's see how we get on. And it's basically going on this one echo of Ali Isaac's article, beautiful article on sovereignty, sovereignty, goddess sovereignty. But now I'm going to be talking about what she's talking about with personal sovereignty. But sticking to the mythology and how we view that during turbulent times at the present, and there are obviously with the Ukraine situation, Sudan, various, they are just ongoing, aren't they? Turbulent times. And in ancient times, we'd be talking about the Vikings and the Anglo-Normans arriving in Ireland. And during that time, the native people, they're not necessarily wanting someone to win. What they want is probably the same as what people want now, is they want stressless security. The risk of being a bit political, take the people of eastern Ukraine. A lot of them did seem to be more Russian than Ukraine. But what they would have loved is just some sort of negotiation so that they could still live as they were, but be recognized as being Russian rather than have their places bombed to nothing. That doesn't do anything. Anyway, thinking the divine rights of the kings and supplying people, if the kings operated as some of the stories told, that they got married to the goddess, the kayak of the land, then they would, they've really done a commitment to honoring that and supplying the people with security as well. through their actions. Now, Joe Mankel-Mangan's clip that Ali features on our article, he mentions that the divine right was conferred upon a king and not by representatives of a Christian God. So they talk their rights. Now I'm trying to think how to put this. The divine right was conferred upon the king by the goddess, by the feminine deity of the earth, and not by a Christian God. Now, the king lived the divine right as husband of the goddess. And today, such a goddess, I'm sure a lot of you would say pagan goddess. But people visiting Ireland now, and more people living in Ireland too, they're much more fascinated and curious about the remains of megalithic stone circles than they are about the landscapes with townlands and rivers that are named after goddesses. And one evidence of this, and you're probably well and truly familiar with this, is Anthony Murphy, an excellent man, Anthony Murphy. His Mythical Island group, it mainly focuses on the megalithic structures, their alignments, and some of the history that might be known. So a lot of fascinating stuff there. Anthony's on that group, he's got a subscriber base of about 30,000 people. Compare that to my Nature Folklore on Substack, that's got 300 people. So there's definitely a profound greater interest in these megalithic monuments and alignments than, like I was saying, the structures seem to be much more fascinating to people than the landscapes and the rivers and all their namings and connections as well. But I suppose between Anthony and myself, there's a lot about different marketing approaches as well. So it's not entirely that. But Ali, she talks about womb tombs. She comes up with that reference. She used to when she had a WordPress blog. And she talks about how many of these ancient stone structures are intimately connected to human births and deaths. Remember, it's only humans that build these structures. You don't get any other animals and birds that do that. And with Nature Folklore, I'm trying to be inclusive of the animals and birds as well. But anyway, we've got these womb tombs that humans have built on specific sites. So to Ali and Mankel and myself, and probably most of you, this is proof, just that, the building of these structures, in a way, is proof of a long-serving ancient reverence, relationship, and worship of the feminine in some way, the feminine of the land, especially of the underworld. But Ali also warns us that during these days, and I expect she's also referring to her recent degree studies, because one of the reasons her blog got less and less, she was stuck into going into a related degree study of what she was doing, writing in her blogs, and she came away with honors. It was well worth doing. But what she's saying, and I think she discovered this when she was at university. When I was at university, I discovered similar, but it wasn't on folklore. It's really essential for us to throw off the blinkers of a patriarchal interpretation that may happen in universities and university study. And she also reminds us that the so-called evidence, and also what I feel is that awful word, facts, it's all still guesswork. But even if it's guesswork, it's all worthy, very worthy of curiosity, our thought, investigations, as by doing so, I believe it still molds us into a much more wholesome life without being worried or concerned that we're following the facts. And Ali, she points out that though there's a lot of Christian high praise for that lad, Patrick, Bridget has always also been in the hearts of the people, at least of Ireland and in other countries as well. And Bridget in the hearts of people, especially from the 5th century, at the time, not long after Patrick as well. And Bridget is still in the hearts of people now. So feminine deities, they've never gone away, even amongst Christians, because the Christians, and a lot of Christians, will hold Bridget in their hearts as well. So Ali also passionately and longingly described how the patriarchal muscle, literally, and command, has also diminished women and the feminine to being subservience, regarded under patriarchal sort of attitude. Women are just there to bear babies, be mothers, carers. And the goddess then is only present within the names of the land and the water, the rivers and the lochs. And even those names have been altered into what they say Anglican in order to hide their feminine connection. Some of the rivers have been completely changed. There's one that goes Leitrim Cavern, and that was the Groyne River. And we'll talk about Groyne when we come to Lunacer. Named after a woman. For some reason, 19th century, I suppose, there was the strong Anglican influence. It was no longer River Groyne. It was Woodstock. Woodford, River Woodford. And now it doesn't even hold the River Woodford name very much because it's the Shannon Waterway. Very sterile name. But anyway, as we know, this patriarchal culture is not just limited to Christian religions, as we see and hear elsewhere. It's far worse in other countries and other cultures. Now, on to Ali talking about sovereignty. She indicates that we think of it perhaps too much in terms of nationalism and national independence. The UK and Brexit is one act of this. And I've got Monica McCabe coming in. She doesn't believe it's me. Yes, Monica, it's me. How you doing? Nice to see you here. Wonderful. Thanks for joining us, Monica. And I hope you catch this from the beginning. As I say, this is a very trimmed down version of this broadcast because I've just come back from the north. Excuse the cough, something I didn't bring. So I haven't got the photos, video clips, and guests that I normally have. And I usually have 3 echoes, but this time it's going to be 1. I don't think I'll have time to move on to a second one. So I'm talking, giving the review and got some quotes from Ali Isaac, who does a wonderful sort of blog area called HAG, H-A-G, on Substack, and remarkable articles. So this is kind of, it started off as goddess sovereignty in relation to kings. And now we're relating to this as a comparison to our present time. And in our present time, when we think of sovereignty as being a part of politics and nationalism, using UK and Brexit as a recent one, whereas people were sold on the idea of Brexit regaining sovereignty, and it turned out to be bullshit. But Ali suggested that we should move from that political thought of following and believe in sovereignty as being the actual mastery of ourselves. Because, we still have our vote. Our vote is a contribution to any national sovereignty. But much more greater is the choices that we personally made out of our own sovereignty, literally every minute of our lives. Now, examples could be food choices, what we're going to make for a meal, what we're going to order online, what we're going to plant in the garden. Those are our own sovereignty choices. And the friends that we were in company of and that we care for, they're all part of our choices. So it's not a total selfish thing. It is a community thing. And also choices about how we approach small parcels of land. We might just have a balcony box or a decent garden, or we may even have a small or even large farm. All of this that we're doing, it supports us and gives us our life and our ability to share life and share what we have. Ali, in her article, and I'm going to leave the link after the show to the article so you can read the rest that I'm not covering, but she is into a bit of a soapbox and stating that we also really need community to survive and thrive. And the community can get broken and damaged if it actually contains individuals within it that are just caring for themselves, and they care for themselves and they feed from the support of the others. And Ellie describes, thinking about that, this is the main reason she's very dissatisfied with the so-called workings of democracy. But I'm going to go off of that. I mean, it's not really for Nature Echoes at all. But I'll give the link and you can go to her article and read about that. But Ali does point out that our vote is still important. It's our political statement about democracy, but it's what we do from within our own personal sovereignty. And if we decide to live off the grid, that's another example. That's our statement, probably our statement against capitalism. Again, reflecting on our personal sovereignty. So both those examples, we decide from our own personal sovereignty. Now, there's a lot that early Isaac writes about that now, but one leading point she mentions is how owning our personal sovereignty is very much about letting go. We have to let go. One of these things I was saying is like with the scribes doing as they are told. They're under the king and the king's direction, or under that with employers as well. So that could be letting go can be a tough challenge, very scary challenge, especially when we're really challenging our employers, and like we could lose our home, our food, everything by just getting a little assertive with our personal sovereignty. But personal sovereignty is about building our own life, I feel. And this is what Ali's saying. And we're building our own life to make sure it's authentic and not being in a position of just servitude and penance even. Duty can be like a penance. So we've got to sustain our authentic self, but at the same time, don't isolate ourselves. We still have to be part of our community, but it does work. If people in a community together, they accent their personal sovereignty, yes, there's difference of opinions, but when you're in proper council and you do have a proper balancing mediator, not a judge, all of these sovereignties come together and it becomes a complete fusion of brilliance and creativity. It's a wonderful thing when it happens, and I hope you've all had some experience of that. So the idea is in personal sovereignty, we don't become puppets of governments, malicious style structures, maybe in a capital corporate situation as well. And I believe, and this is one of the reasons I do the Nature Folklore, is it's our starting point to care for everything, our community and what's around us, to care for it the best that we can. And this is what we were born from, and this is what we'll return to when our temple bodies they've retired themselves. Anyway, I'll leave you with a quote. Ali's article goes on. It's a very long article, worth taking some time to go through it. But I'll leave you with a quote from Ali's article. Being intentional about your life means living in a way that matters to you, regardless of external matters that you cannot control. And if something matters so much that it causes you to make changes in your life, you can be sure that those changes matter to other people too, because they are your community. And by exercising your personal sovereignty to be your intention and your intention of making your life choices, through doing that, you're actually finding your community rather than be totally servitude and suppress servitude to it. So I think that, as I said, I'm going to put the link later on. Any more comments and discussion of that, please let me know. I know I'm supposed to finish. It's 33 minutes. Yeah, I won't. I'll go on to the other thing that I was going to say. And there we go. There's Katie Redding saying sovereignty is being a recent theme of mine. For those who just joined, the idea that I was saying about personal sovereignty, Ali did that as an extension of the sovereignty that the kings had, is that the idea of a king is supposed to mate with the femininity of the land, because that's the womb. And even as you go into the Orient, you've got the yin and yang. That was what I was going to do. Perhaps I'll read that out. You've got the yin and the yang situation, and you've got the yin, obviously the cold underground, but everything is born with the water in that. And of course, at this present time, as Bildner, the sun is warm in the soil, it's warm in the water of the soil. And so therefore you get the mating. This is all about the mating between the sun and the earth. And of course, the humans express that by their own mating as well. And so that's what the kings would do, is get mated to the goddess, the kayak. I'm trying to pull up this article, and I've suddenly forgotten my postcode and my code into this. Let's get on to this. I would like to share this with you because there was terrific discussions talking about courage. I was very nervous about putting this article up. There was something that was going on. I think it was my inspiration from the Festival of Fires, wonderful thing on Ushnik. But at the same time, I was thinking, well, I didn't go for tickets, and I wondered why. And I thought it was a little bit out of balance. And this is, I'm trying to find the thing, and this is what I said about it. I posted this on the Facebook. I've noticed more this time of year than other years, there seems to be a lot of focus on fire. And I wonder and ask, are we forgetting what's going on in nature in the Northern Hemisphere right now? And I love one of the traditions that's a very popular still on May the 1st. When there's still May the 1st always seems to have dew and frost. It seems by the time we get to now, we don't get the dew and frost in the same way. But the tradition is gather the morning dew or even the morning frost and wipe it on our face before dawn. And by doing so, for a brief moment, we see the fairies or the sheep for that moment. Now, think of what's going on there. The sun is actually warming the water. It's warming the mist, it's warming the frost, it's warming the dew. And most people seem to recognize a Bildner or Beltane, as they say in North America, if it's not May Day, it's being a time of fertility. And getting more oriental, like I was saying, the yin being the cold and dark, the yang the hot and the light. When the two come together, there's ki, there's life, there's that life that's flowing. And the cold soil starts to be warm. The sun warms the soil, so start sowing the cereals and crop seeds. They can all be put out now. The plants can be put out in the soil. And this was once a mighty mating time for boys and girls too. And I'm sure that's the origin of spring break in the USA and Canada. But for some reason, at this time in the Bildner celebrations, and one example being the fires at Yushnik, there seems to be a leaving out of the water. And this seems to be happening a lot more over recent years. Seems people are not visiting and using the spring and holy wells at Bildner like they used to. And they once did. There's been some recent revival of well visiting, and I wonder how many of us are connecting to the fire traditions and the warming of now much more than water. And as I started, there seems to be an increased obsession about lighting fires and bigger fires. The fires are getting bigger each year. And I tend to interpret fires as being the masculine, the water springs and the wells feminine. So what's going on? Is this out of balance? So I see this time as being a celebration of fire on water. The twin fires once had we hear about the twin fires that the cows have driven through, and the main purpose, practical purpose of that is to burn off the insects and the eggs, because they've been in the byres, they've been wintering where insects are waking up and they're hibernating too in the cattle. So the idea, drive the cattle through the two fires and it will singe off these insects. It'll be too hot, they'll jump off. And then the cattle are then led to the holy well. If they can't get to the well, then the farmer will used to get water and scatter over their clothes, or the priest. I think I told somewhere about the priest used to have a ritual with the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And the father is put a drop of water up the nose, but son, drop of water in the ear, and the Holy Ghost down the throat. Anyway, that's becoming into a ritual. But the farmers then, after they've sprayed the water, after the cattle have been singed, they give them a bowl of water from the holy well to drink, to give them energy and vibrations before the cattle get sent to higher ground for grazing. Now, one culture change I think that's changing with the traditions is that more and more people these days, less people are farmers really, less people are devoted gardeners. And so that means those people would have a different approach to Bildner, I would believe. It's certainly different now to as I remember how we celebrated 50 years ago certainly when I was in my 50s. To what's being done now. It's definitely a lot more fire and a lot more dressing up as well. But there's less spring water and well water drinking and bathing this time than there used to be. But when I was a child in the 50s, there weren't any supermarkets then. Not here anyway, not where I was. So we did tend to eat what was available in season. or what had been preserved the previous autumn harvest and through the winter. But now today, if we go to markets as well as supermarkets, we can get pretty much any food through any season. So we're not as involved with the land and food as we once were. But overall, I hope people balance this May time and Builder time with this warmer connection, such as wiping the warm dew on our face to recognize the she and the fairies, and recognize the seasonal change, if nothing else, rather than just cling on to the fire. And I think that's very different. And if I can bring this up, I don't know if I can show this in the camera. That was my fire. Oh, it's difficult with the light, isn't it? What's happening there? It's a load of rubbish. I'm trying to get this picture up for you. Can you see that picture? It's sort of messed different. That's my fire and water image. Actually, it's got a bit of the dark, goodness me, the dark trees there. Anyway, that's me rambling on that and going well over the time. Thank you, Myra, for pointing that out. Great to see your voice. That was Katie who was saying that. Myra said something. Yeah, let's create a culture of care. Thank you. Anyway, talking about what's going on, I'll just close off with what's happening. I'm supposed to, yesterday, sorry for those who are the paid subscribers, yesterday was supposed to be the time for me posting the next module, the next prompts module, which actually is around Hawthorne as well. It's almost done. I got the pictures done and just got to make everything look nice. And hopefully I'll get that posted up for you this evening, if not sometime tomorrow. But I'm going to try and get that for you this evening. And then some articles coming up that I'll guess I'm supposed to have an article up at 6 o'clock, but that I've also got some fairy stories for Bildner and includes the Hawthorne. And I've got 3 more in my Bildner series that I've been sending out, Bildner Frolics. So there's the Hawthorne one, and then I've got one on the Green Man, and also what's the last one on Ashlings, and it all goes into the sort of imagination and the way we spread that forward. So those are articles coming up. Aiming to get that all done by the end of this month. Aiming to get the next module up, prompting around the Hawthorne. I think you'll like it. And as I say, the paid subscribers, €5 a month, 30 a year, they will get that and get some help and response on that. Now, Myra's come up with something here. I've learned the tradition of wiping the dew in the early mornings from a Romany traveller. They definitely practice it. I love knowing what is if that's an Irish tradition as well. Yeah, it probably would. It would have come from the travellers, because the travellers they used to be very associated with the holy wells, and they definitely related to the whole idea of the fairies from the wells. Very close connection, and with any water, because a traveller will take water out of a pool if it's been collected. Say sometimes when a tree branches are down or fallen, it often leaves a pool amongst the trunks in the tree, and you get a pool of water. It's rainwater, and a lot of people, the travellers and other people, they will actually put that on their brows, and because it's generally believed, and people will swear by it, it's great for helping warts and any other skin problems. Sometimes if water is collected in boiling stone, and this practice is developed because farmers over the years, for the last 150 years, they've been filling in the holy wells, just greed really for expansion of their fields, or they're worried about the cattle falling down them and breaking bones. So they fill them in. But the people who've been honoring the well, because the well is gone, they actually look for a tree like what I mentioned, or some boiled stone, some round stone, to collect the rainwater, and they've substituted the well for that, and they'll still bottle it up, they'll still wipe it on themselves, and they still regard that as a holy well. Joining late, yeah, a bit different today, Amy. Lovely that you're here. It's a trimmed down version, but I think you'll find it fascinating when you replay it. It's based on Ali Isaac and an article that she had about kayak sovereignty, and then on to personal sovereignty. And I'm now been blabbing on about the idea Bolton has lost its connection to water. It's not fire on water. People are celebrating with fire. And the other thing I didn't mention in that article, what confuses me, I can understand someone and the burning of wood, but what's going on now? I mean, one thing when we get to the Bolton, it's a celebration that we're actually going to get some abundance again, and because winter supplies be running out, the food is running out, we're going off foraging. At least there's the young plants we can go and forage. With the weather getting better, home repairs can be done, longer daylight and so forth. But the one thing that's running out as well is the fuel supplies, and hopefully we're not needing more fuel supplies because the days are getting warmer, but they're going to be low. And where do they get the wood for these big bonfires? It seems an awful waste and they're totally against the season. Having a small fire, like in a fireplace, I think that's great. If you go to, we went to a wedding in Thailand, they had a water ceremony and a fire ceremony. It was done on a small scale, very intimate scale, and it still made the situation very intimate. So I think we can do the fire on water in a very personal kind of way rather than a big show-off, dynamic, patriarchal, this is my big masculine fire, and you're expected to dress up for that. Very different. So that's what I'm talking about in a soapboxy kind of way. So what else have I got? I think I've pretty much covered all I am. So thank you for watching these Nature Echoes, though trimmed down. As I say, if you enjoy what to share in this, even in the plain way as today, link to the Substack. Oh no, I got Amy's lovely comment there. I'll just remove that. There you go. There's the address on the Substack there. That's the link, and you can get the free subscription. That'd be wonderful. I'd love to keep contact with you because I put up at least 40 Nature Folklore articles per year for the subscribers for the free. I'm getting to the end of the Bill and Frolics. I've got 3 more to get up before the end of this month. Not sure what we're going to follow that with. I might go back to the Ups and Trees that I didn't do in March. Might do that series to keep us going till the midsummer, and then on midsummer I'll do some midsummer, probably blooming, flower blooming stuff, and the abundance is coming about. But by the time we've got past the midsummer, the summer solstice, to get it all out, I've got such a lot of articles on the first harvest, which includes the bilberry rituals, blueberry picking, first harvest, crom dove, crom croc, all those sort of things. So that's going to take a while. So I'll put those out through between the summer solstice and the first harvest and a little bit beyond. And then as we get beyond, I'll get started on that wonderful story, one of my favorite, of the ale housewives, the tradition that started in Mesopotamia. It went west, mainly along where the Silk Road is, and how it came now and how that evolved into witchery. I think you'll be fascinated. So by the time I get up to that, we'll be into that some one time anyway. So that's what's coming up. What else? If you upgrade to become a support subscriber, you'll get invited to take part in my journaling Nature Folklore course. And that goes into a lot deeper than what I do on Echoes and what I do with my articles. And the subscription cost covers your entry into that. And I include 20 modules for the journaling Nature Folklore course. You can join at any time. It's a revolving course, not a linear one. So you can join in and start at any time, and then you get the latest updates added each year. I'll be adding more in the module. I'll improve the modules each year, so you'll always get something new. And then there'll be 4 seasonal online live workshops, and people have been asking, can we actually be live, get together? So I'm working that on because I've got a lovely country house hotel down the road here. But the cost is €5 a month. That's if you go for the journaling as well. And to get 50% discount, that's 30 a year in your currency, €30 a year, whatever that is in your currency. So thank you all you support subscribers, because your support is why I'm still here broadcasting, and your support subscriptions go towards keeping this show afloat, because each month I have to pay subscriptions to hold the various elements of the show together online. So I can produce this each week. Coming up next Sunday is Nature Echoes. Not quite sure yet. I might go back. I haven't brought up about the Torora community forest, but there's a couple of forestry things I'd like to bring up if I can next week. So see what comes up in the news. So thank you. I've enjoyed sharing this afternoon to evening of Nature Echoes. Any more questions and comments from you there? Love to hear you. We didn't have any guests today, so if you're watching this replay after the broadcast, please keep posting your comments and questions. I do check all this from time to time. There's Cliff Carr's come on board there with the thank you, Cliff. Of course, we got to feature your new album somewhere, bit by bit. So I'm going to have to start thinking about that, which would be wonderful. As I say, keep posting your comments and questions even after I've gone off the air now, and I do check the comments, reply to what you've posted. If you're on YouTube, we didn't get any YouTube people today because I didn't promote this session through the YouTube channels and through the people who look at the YouTube. But if you go to the YouTube, click the bell icon, it gives you a message every week what's coming up on Nature Echoes. So enjoy a safe week full of lots of wonder, inspirations, enchantments. All this that comes from the presence of water, woods, and the mysteries of nature, and especially if you let go using your personal sovereignty. So until next Sunday, I look forward to meeting you then. Enjoy the week coming up. Play well, be good, and good is however your personal sovereignty interprets that. So I wish you bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was lovely doing that. Thanks.